Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session on funding opportunities for the PhD program. I'm the Associate Dean of Graduate Programs, Marlon Simmons. Let's begin today, firstly, with land acknowledgements. Then secondly, we're going to have some introductions regarding the office. And then I want to move into this very important session regarding funding, okay? And it's important to think of the funding by way of funding opportunities, okay? So this will run till 5:30 to 6, and then 6, we've got another key session where it's an overview of the PhD program, okay? So let's begin with land acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, located in the heart of southern Alberta, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprised of the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, Tsuut'ina First Nations, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Districts 5 and 6. Okay. So thank you. It's always important to start in a good way. So I introduced myself previously, being the Associate Dean. I'd like to open to the other office members. Maybe we can start with Angie, our manager.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Angie Crowley, the manager of the graduate programs. Welcome to our program.
Hi there. I'll go next. My name is Ashley Locke, and I am the Placement and Student Funding Coordinator. So if you had questions about your funding, you could reach out to me.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Angie. Jazz? You're muted, Jazz.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jess Curran, and I'm a graduate program coordinator, and welcome, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Jazz. And Sylvia, you can say hi.
Hi, everybody. Sylvia, I am the graduate program administrator for incoming educational research PhD students, MA students, and Doctor of Education Learning Science students, as well as our current students in program in those areas.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Sylvia. So just a bit about the session. As I mentioned, we're going to go 5:30 to 6. Regarding funding opportunities, and then 6 to 7, you've got the cohort meet and greet and an overview of PhD programs, okay? So let's jump right into our funding policy, okay, for PhD students. And I want you to think of it as funding opportunities. Let me start by saying really what it's not. So the minimum funding for domestic students is $22,000, right, for the first 4 years of the program each year. For international students, it's $24,000 for 4 years each year. Okay, and it consists of funding opportunities. So I want you to be mindful. We get a lot of questions in the office regarding whether it's assumed that you get a flat $22,000 check or a monthly check. It's made up of funding opportunities. So I want you to keep that in mind, right? And where today we're going to touch on where and how the funding opportunities are located, okay? Sources of funding opportunities. So any or all of the funding sources of the following sources of funding opportunities may count toward a student's minimum funding. That's the amount guaranteed. So all the external scholarships, be it SSHRC, CIHR, AGIS, NSERC, donor scholarships, that's part of the funding opportunity. Workland School Awards, Graduate Awards Competition, GAC, okay? All our internal scholarships awards and other program or university competitive graduate awards. Those are all included in terms of funding opportunities and count towards the minimum $22,000 or $24,000, okay? If you are successful with a scholarship of 1,000 or more, you're also going to receive a top-up to honor that of 1,500 on top of your funding. Okay, so there are other opportunities as well. So let's say you get a shirk of 20,000, you will get that 20,000 from the shirk. We will also have to top up to 2,000 or match the 2,000 because that's a guaranteed funding, as well as you get a top up of 15. So that would be 23,500. Okay, we're going to have a lot of scenarios playing out, as well as we often have a lot of questions regarding the student funding, right? The first place to go to email regarding student funding, I just put it in the chat, gpe.studentfunding@ucalgary.ca, right? And that will come to Ashley. You just met Ashley. And then we have discussions and it's triage. So that's the source if you've got any questions, okay? So let's look at some of the sources. You've got graduate assistantships, right? That's a GAR, G-A-R, GAR, a GANT, or GAT, okay? Other sources speak to the sessional appointments, paid internships, or graduate assistantships. And graduate assistantships is primarily 4 moments. You may be a research assistant for your supervisor through your supervisor's funding. You may be a GANT. That's another research assistantship funded through the Workland School of Education, mostly. You may be a teaching assistant. You may be a sessional instructor, or you may have a paid internships, right? So these are some of the funding opportunities that we work with that's available on campus. We're also going to talk about, well, how do you even find these funding opportunities? Okay, eligibility to receive financial support. You must be registered full-time, be active in the program, and demonstrate satisfactory progress on your APR, annual progress report. That's mandatory, okay? That's standard. Okay, so please note. If you're receiving funding from a graduate assistantship, you must be available to fulfill the researcher's reasonable expectation regarding attendance and activity in the research environment. If the expectations are not met, the allocated payment may be deducted from the annual funding offered to the student for that academic year, right, upon further evaluation by the associate dean, which is me. Okay, now often when you engage in a contract and all the requisites, it's delineated there and you come into agreement, right? So it's nothing going to be new. You know exactly how many hours you're required if you're a teaching assistantship, if you have to be in the classrooms, right? So students must also be available to take employment as a GAT, GANT, or sessional instructor. Otherwise, the funding amount of the GAT or sessional refused will be deducted from the annual amount funding offered to the student, right? So your funding packages is often made up of, let's say, scholarships and awards, maybe a graduate assistantship, maybe a teaching assistantship, and a sessional, okay? Often. Now, let's say you're offered a teaching assistantship as part of the funding package, and you choose not to because you want to work on some other milestone or a due date or a project, then that will be deducted. Okay, that's noted. Also, domestic students, you're required to apply for tri-council scholarships for which you are eligible in the first 4 years. So be it SHRC, be it CIHR, be it NSERC, you're required to do that, right? And we've got a lot of support regarding applying for grants. So do reach out. So let's look at some resources you need to note. You're responsible for paying your tuition and fees annually. Okay, so as you get your funding, you're responsible for that, right? And you can see the following website. This PowerPoint will be available for you. So you not need to be rushing to take notes. If you have funding from university sources, you can also apply for a payment plan, right? So take note of that and the contacts. If you've got questions regarding income tax, you need to go to the following links, as well as you can also speak to the register. International students, if you need advice regarding support, any immigration matters, you need to speak to the International Student Services, okay? In terms of your collective agreement regarding assistantships, please, you need to review, go to the Human Resources site to get a sense of HR and what they have to say regarding compensation. But importantly, you need to visit the GSA, the Graduate Student Association Collective Agreement, okay? Because that gives you information regarding what leave you can take, be it vacation, if you're sick. So that's important to note this resource, okay? Okay, so let's look at some of the scenarios regarding what your funding looks like. So often, your first year as a PhD student, you will have a grant, which is a research assistantship where you are working with your supervisor. That's going to amount to like 4,500. Okay, so that's distributed in the fall and the winter. And that's on the 10th and the 25th. You get that payment, as well as you receive a scholarship of 17,500. That's an award you receive, and that's a monthly payment. Okay, so year one is sort of fixed. You have that lump sum. You're gonna have 17,500 being distributed monthly, once a month on the 25th, and the grant that's distributed bi-weekly on the 10th and the 25th. Okay, so you have that opportunity in year one. Again, if you're the international student, you're gonna have 19,500 distributed. 19,500 plus the grant, it adds up to the 24. The 17,500 plus the 4,500, that's gonna add up for the domestic. Okay, year two, often enough, you'll have a GAT. Okay, a GAT of 4,500, and then you have the other payments in terms of a scholarship, right? There's also an expectation though, right, that it's your second year. So being in the program, because the first year you have the top program that's available, the teaching preparation program. So while in your first year, you'll be working with the Associate Dean Teaching and Learning, doing the top program. So that's going to prepare you for teaching assistantships to get a GAT, because that's the expectation. Remember, there are funding opportunities. Another slide down, we'll get a sense of where we'll be looking to apply for these funding opportunities, okay? Then in years 3 and 4, there are multiple opportunities. You can possibly get a sessional teaching where you are the sole instructor, as well as a GAT, or maybe a GANT, or a GAR, as well as a scholarship. So there are multiple opportunities, particularly in year 3 and year 4, right? And remember, your sessional, part of the collective agreement is you are eligible for 2 sessionals. Because often sessionals, when you apply, there's a seniority, and you're ranked by seniority, how many courses you've taught. But being a student, the collective agreement allows you to have 2 sessionals over the 4-year term that puts you outside of that seniority ranking. So that's a big boost in terms of funding opportunities, as well as experience as teaching. So really the sort of plan is the first year get you being a research assistant while you're doing the teacher preparation program. The second year, you are in a sense, now that you've done the top teacher preparation program, you're doing a GAT, which is you're a teaching assistant. So you're in the classroom assisting the instructor with teaching. And that is meant to prepare you for being an instructor in the 3rd and 4th year, right? So in the 3rd and 4th year, you're looking for multiple opportunities, be it sessional, be it research assistant, be it GANs, your scholarship and awards, tri-council, as well as we provide work plan awards, okay? So there are multiple opportunities, okay? Now, some of you will also have paid internships, especially if you're in the EDPS program, okay? So these are just other combinations that we can have. You can probably get 2 GATs, right? Plus the scholarship, or maybe a sessional and a GAT, or a GANT and a GAT, right? So there are multiple opportunities, especially in the 3rd and 4th year, right? Okay, so that brings us to hold on, I just want to make sure I didn't miss. This slide. So, firstly, let's look at awards and scholarships. It's important you go to the awards and scholarship page on our website, workland.ucalgary.ca, graduate programs and awards. There are a host of awards there. That's your starting point. So please pay attention to that. The graduate assistantships, GATs, GANTs, GARs. You need to be paying attention to elevate.ucalgary.ca, and that's where you apply for the GATs. Also the sessionals, sessional teaching, you're a sole instructor, you go to the careers.ucalgary.ca. So these are 3 important moments regarding where you find these funding opportunities, right? Because they're moving parts, so you have to pay attention to the 3 moments. So graduate assistantships, research assistantship, teaching assistantships, we're going to elevate. Solo instructors, we're going to go to careers, and then we're monitoring, looking at all the awards on the award side. Now, when you're getting paid and you have question about payment, you go to hr@ucalgary.ca. Because remember, you could be getting paid from Workland as a sessional, then you've got an external award, and you're getting funding from there as well. So if you want to know, well, what is my funding for this? How much am I getting for a month? This particular month, you'd want to go to HR because that's some calculation, right? Because you've got that external source, right? Also, please pay attention. It's your responsibility to plan for the cost of your studies when living in Calgary. Okay, so to help with your budget and plan your finances, we've got some resources here. You've got the graduate student cost of living calculator. I would go in and get a sense of some of the costs in terms of monthly expenses, okay? You've also got a link regarding the idea of cost of living in Calgary, as well as another resource in terms of, well, how do you manage your monies? Okay, these are important resources, okay? If you have any questions, again, regarding funding or or what's happening, a starting point is that GPE.student funding at UCalgary. You're gonna reach out to Ashley there, okay? So those are key moments. Okay, so I think I've hit all the slides. I'm gonna stop sharing now. And I imagine we've got a host of questions. We've got about 7 more minutes before the other session starts. I see Dr. Mary Claire is here regarding the program overview. Why don't we just have an open discussion? What concerns you? What worries you now? Any thoughts, any questions in the other 7 minutes we have? Go, 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 go. No questions? We all set for funding? Are we sure? So do we all understand first year where the funding is going to come from? The first year, some of you might be privileged to have, let's say, a shirk. So if you've got a shirk of 20,000, let's just say it's 20,000, the guaranteed funding would be 2,000. So you would get 20,000 from the shirk. Workland would come in and guarantee the other 2,000. So you've gotten that 2,000. Plus, we give you a 1,500 top up on that. So that's 23,500. So your minimum guaranteed funding has been met. But yet at the same time, it also allows you to apply for other funding opportunities, right? So you may be a research assistant for a supervisor in our faculty or across campus. You may be a teaching assistant in our faculty or across campus, or a sessional instructor in our faculty or across campus, right? So that's why in those moments you're paying attention to all those links, okay? In your, let's say in your third year, where you may think, okay, you want to be focusing on, you've just finished your comps, your oral candidacy exam, and being a sessional, that might be a bit too much, okay? Or you may not feel prepared to be a sessional. So you might want to, hey, I want to do a GAR with my supervisor, as well as apply for a GAT, a teaching assistant with the instructor who happens to be my supervisor. So that would be 2 distinct moments of a GAT and a GAR, and then the rest, be it of the 22 to 24, that's where Workland comes in and would have that monthly payment. So cumulatively, it's there, right? So what
I just wanted to share on our slide, we had you, sorry, Marlon. I was just going to say on our slide, we had UPE and GPE. We have the acronyms and some might not be familiar with them. So it's opportunities to teach in the undergraduates programs and our graduate programs. So that's our UPE and GPE acronym.
Yeah, thanks, Angie. Okay, other moments regarding the funding? So I just want one takeaway. So let's say you're an international. We would get a lot of questions about, okay, am I just going to get a monthly $2,000 payment over 12 months? And that's my 24. Okay, so I would just want you to know that is not the arrangement or the distribution of the funds, right? We need to think of the funding policy by way of funding opportunities. So there are opportunities there, and some of which we need to be applying for, right? So it's distributed in a particular way that we have to note. Okay. Okay, I thought I would have gotten more questions. I often get a lot more questions.
Feel
Michelle,
free to put it in the chat if you're shy to speak up. You can put it in chat
Yeah.
too.
I thought, Michelle, you were going to jump in. You looked last night, you looked like you were going to jump in. I thought you were going to jump in today. I had another piece to share. So at 6, we've got the program overview meet and greet, right? What happened there? Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing. Something happened. And before everything just freezes, stop sharing. Either way, at 6, we'll have our meet and greet. And that's going to be with Mary Claire. Is Meadow going to join us at 6? Mary Claire?
Yeah, as far as I know, she's coming. Yeah, we just talked about it in our last meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, goody. Okay, goody. Okay, any other moments, any other burning question? If a student is
We have
already
one here in chat. Sorry, Marlon. If a student is already employed full-time, are they eligible for any of the awards?
Yeah, in terms of eligibility, I believe you are. It's actually a Meadow question, but either way, Debbie, you would go to the awards. They would have eligibility there, and it would be stated clearly. So yeah, that would be my response to that. Okay, yeah, the awards will state the eligibility, so it'll be clear there. Thanks, Debbie. Other moments, if you've got questions, you could put it in the chat. Okay, you're welcome, Katie. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. So this brings us to the end of the funding session. Now we have the PhD program overview as well as meet your cohort, and that's going to be led by Dr. Mary Claire Shanahan and Dr. Meadow Schroeder, starting at 6. Here is Meadow. Hello, Dr. Meadow Schroeder. How are you? And hello, Dr. Mary Claire Shanahan.
Hello.
Okay.
There. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot, Marlon.
Yeah, so I'll just say bye-bye now. And thank you. There was I think it was, sorry, in the chat, there was a note by Leroy. You registered for a meet and greet, but I thought it was not until tomorrow. Well, I think it's now and you're here. So goody, you're here.
Yeah, we're mostly just doing a program overview. There's a good chance to meet us, though.
Right, great. Okay, thanks everyone, and bye-bye.
Thanks, Marlon.
Bye-bye, thanks.
Hi. Got the right camera working.
Perfect. Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here with us tonight. And was Jazz going to be sharing the PowerPoint for us?
Hi. Yeah, I can share the PowerPoint.
Sure. Great, thanks. I guess maybe we can start off by introducing ourselves. I'm Marie Claire Shanahan. I'm a professor in learning sciences, and I'm one of the graduate program directors for the programs in educational research. So for people in language and literacy, adult learning, and curriculum. And we also have another educational research graduate program director. She's not here tonight, but she also is the director for students who are in leadership and learning sciences as well.
And I'm Meadow Schroeder. I seem to... So I seem to be having some difficulty with my internet just right now, so I apologize if I'm starting to freeze. I'm also a graduate program director, and I am the graduate program director for educational psychology, which are the areas of counseling and school and applied child psychology. I'm also responsible as the graduate program director for scholarships and awards as well. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Jazz, we got
Here's our
there.
slides.
Great. So we're just going to take you through a bit of an overview of the structure of the program, kind of some of the key milestones, common questions that people have. I know you've got a lot of information already about funding, so this is a lot more, but you'll have a chance, of course, to learn about all of this when you're here with your supervisors and with your colleagues in your classes, but this will give you an overview. So at least these things might sound familiar when you arrive here in the fall. Great. So Jazz, we'll just start. Great. So just to get to hear from everybody and give us an idea of some of the things that people are thinking about, if you can just jump in the chat there and let us know something that you're looking forward to about your doctoral program, and maybe one thing that you're worried about as you enter. Give everyone a chance to do that, and hopefully we'll be able to address some of those worries at least. We haven't heard from anyone in the chat yet.
Everyone's excited and ready to go.
Excited about
That's
learning
good to
more,
know.
which is, yes, yeah, exactly. I think Marlon may have overwhelmed them with funding details.
Oh my gosh. All right, so here's someone who's honest. Thanks for your honesty, Ellison.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit worried about heavy workload. Yeah. PhD is busy. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. Yeah, welcome,
sure.
Joseph. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle.
Yeah. Workload definitely is probably one of the biggest things that we hear about students in terms of complaints and worries. It is a busy time, right? But it is like, it goes by really fast too at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. And the workload is, it kind of has its cycles of ups and downs, of times that are really, really busy and times that are less so. Just like the rhythm of the year, really, in any job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for sharing that. And I know probably a lot of you are feeling similarly. Yes, yeah, and that's also a really common one, is worrying about the financial constraints, and making that work. And we're always here in the grad office to help answer questions about that. Here I am offering that, and Meadow is really the person who answers questions about scholarships and funding.
Okay. That's okay, Katie. Yep.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah, completing the thesis, getting through the thesis process is definitely a challenging task, and a big one. It requires you to be pushing yourself forward often, which can feel daunting. I know I felt that way. Thanks so much, everyone. So I think you can all see that a lot of probably things you're worried about are fairly common.
I will say one of the wonderful things about doing a PhD, though, is that it really opens up doors. So I was really worried about finances too. When I first started my PhD, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to afford this, but it just happened that like there were so many more opportunities that came my way that it ended up being okay in the end. Like it wasn't as financially constraining as I had originally anticipated. And there's lots of opportunities within the university here and externally to just do interesting things. And once you do become that, getting into that PhD realm, I was surprised by the diversity of things I could do.
Thanks,
All right.
Meadow. Okay, we'll go to the next slide there, Jess. So one of the things we wanted to give an overview of was the timeline. I think someone mentioned that even in their kind of worries about it. It's typically 4 year, sort of speak about it generally as 4, but more our average is about 4.5 to 5. Students definitely do it in 4, but you have up to 6 when you arrive in the program. The first thing, and this is usually your first 2 years, is your coursework, and exactly which courses you take will be determined by which program you're in, as well as, so each one has some required courses, and then others that you will work together with your supervisor to identify the courses that are going to really fit with your research interests and things that are going to help you develop towards those next stages. So the field of study paper is a written paper. It's kind of our version of a comprehensive exam, but it's not an oral exam. It's a paper, and you'll decide on the contents of that and what literature you need to review and what you're going to focus on. All of that you'll work really, really closely with your supervisor on. So you don't need to be coming up with that completely on your own, what that should look like. But overall, it's a big long essay that you've talked to your supervisor about, and that's the first stage of getting into your entering into candidacy. And you usually do that at the collision of your coursework. Yeah, Meadow.
And just to add too, it's not like you're not working on your field of study as you're going through the program and doing courses. It's just that typically people pass that phase after their course is done.
Yeah. Complete it, kind of pull together the things you've learned in your courses. Your coursework is often, you're reading some of the literature that you will be including in your field of study. So yeah, it isn't something that's tacked on at the end for sure. And then after that has passed, that's something that'll get reviewed by your committee. Once your committee's agreed that you've passed your field of study paper, you'll move on to working on a research proposal. And again, this is something you'll work closely with your supervisor, probably meet with your committee a couple of times to discuss your ideas and what you're doing. I just noticed the question pop up, is the coursework over 12 months? Typically, yes. Actually, and maybe Meadow, you can add for the psychology programs. For the educational research programs, very often your course, your specialization courses, so your courses in language and literacy, adult learning, leadership, whatever your specialization area is, those are often in the summer, whereas in the winter, more often you're taking research methods courses. So typically it does run through the full 12 months, and usually it takes people about 1.5 to 2 years. And then, yeah, Meadow can add for, I don't know what it is for psychology programs.
Yeah, we have some spring courses, but not just mostly fall and winter with some spring.
Yeah, exactly. Makes sense. So then you're typically, and your aim is to have, or the deadline that you begin with is to have your oral candidacy exam. And that's the exam where you discuss your proposal. Some people will call it a proposal defense. And that you want to have that, or aim to have that at the end of your 28th month in the program. So 2 years plus 4 months. So for our PhD students, it usually ends up being kind of in the mid to late fall of their 3rd year. So the first step in that is your proposal. You work really hard, go back and forth with your supervisor, with your committee. They'll give you feedback. You'll do revisions, send it back to them. When they're all happy with it, then you can schedule that oral exam, and they'll be there as well as additional examiners. And at that point, thanks, Meadow, for adding that. And at that point, then you will be called a candidate. You'll have that exam, and at the end, hopefully everyone will say, that's great, your research proposal, and they'll give you feedback as well. The proposal isn't a fixed plan of what you are promising to do. It's really about showing that you're ready to do independent research and that you've planned something really robust. but you're allowed to take that forward. You'll probably get suggestions in your candidacy exam of developing your research further, other ideas to explore, things you might want to consider. So it's not set in stone from there. And then you'll work with your supervisor on the next steps of starting that research. Then for the rest of your third and into your fourth year, depending on how long it takes to collect your data, and that really depends on the kind of study you're doing, how long it takes to find people, how many people, and that varies tremendously. So it's really hard to put a exact timeline on that. And then the next stage is exactly what you're talking about, working through writing up your findings and developing that into a full dissertation. And again, that's something you'll work closely with your supervisor about what exactly that will look like. So fourth, fifth year, usually people are ready for their dissertation, their final exam, their dissertation defense, and that will be hopefully the conclusion or near conclusion. Most students have to do some revisions afterwards, and then you're completing those and you're done. Yay. And so that's kind of just a general overview of what it'll look like. So when you're starting here, you don't need to be thinking. When you come in September, you don't need to be thinking. You don't need to have a detailed plan of your research proposal ready. You should have ideas of what you're interested in, but be willing to learn from your courses, to talk with your supervisor, and really be open to things that you're learning in your coursework. And that will help you refine what you're interested in, what kind of methods interest you. So you don't have to have that when you come in for sure. It's best actually to be a bit open about what you want to do. Go next slide. So what do you need to do? We will also be talking about what your supervisor needs to do too. This is all kind of we work together to support our grad students and for our grad students to move their way through their programs. So working hard in your courses is very important. As I said, the courses really, it's not like probably how you sometimes experience in maybe an undergrad program where there's some courses that are really important to you and some you're just doing because you have to do them. Really, you should be building with your supervisor coursework that meets the requirements, but also really is all kind of pushing you in some way towards your research plan. And so working hard, really engaging with the theories or really engaging with the research methods that you're learning is really important. It's a really important part of getting ready for your dissertation, your candidacy and dissertation processes. You should be trying to seek out, and probably they talked about this in the funding session, and Meadow mentioned this too, seeking out opportunities to be involved in research and presentations. You'll probably very often start with a Gantt with your supervisor, and it's a really wonderful opportunity to get involved with some of their research if that's possible. You can also look for other opportunities. People will be hiring based on, for example, grants they've gotten from SSHRC or other organizations, and they'll have money for research assistance. And sometimes those can be sort of small tasks. They just need somebody to do something really specific. And other times it can really kind of pull you into a long-term project that you can be involved with for several years and get to be involved in publications and presentations and all the other things. But those are things that you really need to keep your eye out for. And we'll make sure that you have access to the Elevate system, which is where people will post these kind of jobs, but also talking to your supervisor because they'll be aware what they have available and also what their colleagues and collaborators have available. Really important, and this is probably the biggest one that's an obligation, is meeting your funding obligations. So everyone needs to be applying for the awards that they are, especially the major awards that they are eligible for. So people who are Canadian students, that everyone will apply every year for SSHRC or other Tri-Council if your research is kind of maybe into health research or something like that. But that's a really important part of the process, the graduate awards through our Faculty of Grad Studies. And again, you'll get these timelines as you're here, but it's really important that you are that you are taking that you are doing those applications, as well as fulfilling the obligations of if any, again, depending on your funding situation, especially if you get some major scholarships, or if you don't, making sure that you're fulfilling your obligations through grants, GARs, GATs, whatever the case may be for you. Again, Marlon would have gone over that. I put leadership in brackets. It's a really wonderful thing for people to get involved with. It can also help you with scholarship applications, help you meet people in the program, but there are a lot of opportunities to be involved in leadership as a graduate student representative in your EDSA, on various committees, getting involved. There's a graduate programs in education, Graduate Students Association, GPESA. I think I missed a letter there, but they have events for students, and there's also opportunities to be involved with them through lots of different, in lots of different ways. It is important that you meet regularly with your supervisor. This is also part of their responsibility, but it's important that you're staying in touch with them, letting them know how things are going, which courses you're thinking of taking, kind of being in touch with them about those things. It's really, really difficult as a supervisor when we don't hear from students and we don't really know how we can help. And that kind of makes both the candidacy and dissertation processes a lot more difficult. And finally, seeking help and support when it's needed. It's really important that you do ask these questions. As Meadow just put in the chat, we're one of the main contacts that you can use to ask these kind of questions. More kind of technical paperwork in the system questions will often go to our graduate program assistants. I think a couple are here in the session and maybe said hello earlier. They're a great resource for anything has to do with the paperwork or things that are in your file as a student and how the processes work here. So they're another great first contact, really, really knowledgeable. And we can also help you find other resources as well. There are international student advisors forms. Yes, thanks, Megan. So many forms. You'll learn that about there are so many forms involved in graduate programs. And Megan, who just popped up to say that in the chat, is one of our graduate program assistants, and she will, as one of the people that you can ask about those things. What do I do next with this? Where do I submit this? Who does this go to? How do I make this next thing happen in my program? But yeah, seeking help, there's also international student advisors, as well as student support officers available in the Faculty of Grad Studies as well. And so please seek those out. Don't seek out, ask us, send us email. If we're not the right people, or if someone like Megan or the other GPAs aren't the right people, we'll help you find the right people to ask to help you with the help and support that you need. You'll probably get information about the Academic Support Office and Academic Support Office. There's also a Writing Center. And through that, you can actually, as a graduate student, set up one-on-one writing tutorials. Some people will actually sort of book appointments to write with a TA from the Writing Center to get someone who's just kind of sitting with you, supporting and there to ask questions, and even just sometimes for accountability in writing, which can really help. So really, really look out for these opportunities and don't be afraid, they're for you. Yeah, Angie just mentioned also Sylvia Parks, and Sylvia, for all the educational research folks, she's the main graduate program assistant, and she has worked here for a long time and really knows. If I have a question, I go to Sylvia. So she's definitely a super helpful resource. Okay, we can go to the next slide. What's things that supervisors really appreciate? So you're going to be working quite closely with your supervisor, and they're going to be, someone who's supporting you through the next couple of years. And what kind of things can really help with building that relationship? One of them is a really important one is willing to take on new challenges, even if you might not be successful. Be willing to try. We all know that you're students, you're here to learn. And so it's okay to say, I've never done that kind of analysis before, but if you help me learn how to do it, I would love to try. That kind of attitude, that kind of approach to your work is something that really makes a big difference for supervisors, and is something that they're really happy to work with you. I just sent some things actually to one of my students to say she's helping us with an analysis, and it's exactly that. It's an analysis she's never done, but we sent her the resources, and she wants to learn how to do it. And that's the kind of thing that can really help build a good relationship. Something else that's important is really seeing criticism as feedback. So that you can improve. Again, we're all here to learn, and even as faculty members, we're always learning. But graduate studies is a learning process. So getting feedback on your papers that maybe some of it is not, A+, everything's great, is really a chance to learn how to do this well. Graduate student writing, especially sometimes depending on what your master's experiences have been, this can be a really new kind of writing for you. It was for me, and it took a lot of hard work and a lot of accepting of criticism to be able to learn how to do this kind of writing. So really trying to approach things as feedback, not judgment. Being less concerned about your grades, but mostly concerned about learning. Are you learning in your courses? Are you developing? Are you chasing down things because you want to know more? All of those things go a long way. And related to that, approaching your coursework and your research knowing that sort of talent can be improved through hard work, good strategies, and feedback from others. It's really easy in grad school, again, I know this from experience, to fall into the trap of comparing yourselves to other people who work with your supervisor or other people who are in your classes and feel, oh, they're just so much better at this than I am. They're so talented, they're so smart. And really, so much of that, and again, when I look back, I realized that some of the people I felt that way about me, or about others, but also some of them had just had different training. I came from an engineering background. I had never written an essay when I started grad school. I didn't know how to write any essay. Whereas, some of my students in my classes, they'd studied philosophy. They were so good at this kind of course, and so it just took hard work to get there. But it was about learning, and it was sometimes people have had learning opportunities that you haven't, but it's not because they're smarter or better necessarily. It's just you need the chance to learn that too. Okay, next slide. Supervisor's responsibility. So actually at the beginning, it's really important. At the beginning of the year, sometime in September, you'll actually fill out a checklist with your supervisor that has a long, I think it's almost 3 pages long. It's a long list of things to make sure that both you and your supervisor have agreed to. And you'll talk about all of these things in this communicating and meeting with you regularly, helping you plan your research, building your ideas, providing opportunities for you to be involved in research, helping you create timelines and plans for your professional development, providing feedback on your documents in a reasonable time. They will help you form your supervisory committees, and they take care of all of the scheduling of the exams and finding the examiners. That's actually not something you need to do. So you'll go through, and that's a really important part of getting to know your supervisor and really setting down that they have responsibilities to you as well as you do to them. Go next slide. All too often we think about grad school in terms of like organizational terms, which help for understanding what the whole thing looks like. You want to, it feels a bit like checkboxes sometimes though. Complete your courses, apply for scholarships and awards. Look, I've completed my thesis. Now I'm done. Check, 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 check. And that's a tough way to look at it because sometimes for all kinds of reasons, things disrupt this plan. Any students who were here during COVID, most of them, their research plans changed. They couldn't recruit the way they wanted. They couldn't do interviews face-to-face. And there's nothing they'd done wrong, but the sort of checkbox approach, it took a lot longer, or they had to change what their plans were. And being kind of flexible and open to opportunities and to new learning is what's really important, not just the check boxes. And we know that it's a complicated process. We can go next slide. So we wanted to highlight a couple of things that are really important. Achieving, probably everyone comes in thinking that is something that's going to be important here, but we know that it's actually really important to be engaged. Go to EDSA events, go to faculty events, go to the graduate students, the GSA, which is the University-Wide Grad Student Association, and GPESA, which is the Graduate Programs and Education Students Association. Go to those things, meet people. You'll probably find people to write with, people to check in on, people to support you, and you can support each other. So kind of all of these kind of being, enjoying, connecting, and engaging sometimes is an underestimated part of what a good graduate school experience looks like. And it is really important not just to prioritize achieving. The balancing of all of these things is really, and there's a lot to learn. It's really what will help you produce a really interesting and potentially novel dissertation project when you meet other people, when you talk to them about their research, when you go to presentations, when you go to graduate student research conferences and learn what other people are doing. These are all things that can enhance your own research as well and help you feel connected and supported. Next slide. It really is confusing. So almost everyone that you'll talk to within Workland, faculty, other students, if you're feeling like something is too confusing, I feel silly that I don't know this. I had a faculty member say that to me today in a presentation. I don't even want to ask my question because I feel like I'm just going to give away how much I don't know. And it turned out that the question was great. It's something that lots of people are confused about. So most of the things, this is a difficult process to navigate. It is confusing. There are lots of things out there. So almost anyone that you ask isn't going to judge you for asking any of these things because we've all been there. We've all felt overwhelmed by regulations and guidelines and all the things we need to do. We just wanted to say if it feels overwhelming, it's because there's a lot to navigate there, and don't blame yourself for that. And most of us will all understand that that's the case, and we want to help you. Okay, next slide. Oh, there was other things. I forgot there was other things on this slide. But how can you do that? Attending university faculty events, as I said, attend the GSA, it's the university-wide, and GPESA. It's the Graduate Programs and Education Students Association. I think I got it right this time. We can go to the next slide. Ask questions. And again, so many things. We just wanted to let you know that so many of these things are so common. Don't let these kinds of feelings or thoughts throw you off or make you start to isolate yourself from other students or from your supervisor. These are really normal things. I think everybody at some point in grad school feels like they're not good enough to be there. Maybe it'd be better if I just did something else. Don't know what I was thinking. And everyone else is doing so well compared to me. How come I don't know these things? There's so many things that can go through your mind, and it's normal. It's totally a normal part of the experience. And I would say it can be not easy. It can be sometimes tempting to think, oh, I should kind of withdraw. I need to just focus on reading things because I don't know enough, and I can't go to events, and I can't do things, and I can't meet with anyone until I know more. And we just want to encourage you that actually probably the opposite is true. The more you talk to somebody about these kinds of thoughts and feelings, the more you'll probably realize that everybody in your classes is feeling the same way. All of your professors have felt this way at some point, and it really is very, very normal. And so the more that you can reach out, ask questions, be part of things is a much better approach to getting through these things and onwards towards the rest of your research. Next slide. Yeah, and you'll often hear people talk. This is a nice quote about rejections. it's unfortunately a normal part of our work. We all, the fanciest, highest titled professor that you can think of, the smartest grad student that you think is getting all the awards, everyone gets rejected, and everyone gets rejected many times. And it's just really important to be able to tell yourself it's part of the process. It's part of the process. My supervisor had a good tactic, which I still use. When I get a rejection, from something, paper rejection or conference, something like that, allow yourself one day to just be mad. Be as mad as you want. The advisors, the reviewers don't know what they're talking about. They clearly didn't understand it. What fools they are. One day to just indulge yourself. Be as mad and angry about it as you want. Don't look at it again for a couple more days. Once all that anger has dissipated, open it back up, and you can look at it constructively. That has always worked well for me. I do enjoy, and it does still help to take the time to just be angry. And it's okay, it's totally normal. But what you need is a process to make sure that you can get to the next step, which is, okay, how can I make this better? How can I send it back to the journal? How can I send it to another conference? How can I improve this part so I can include it in my dissertation, and really learning from it. And usually feels a lot better after you've put it. She said put it in the drawer, because this was 100,000 years ago when we got rejections in the mail. So she said put it in a drawer, but put it in the email equivalent of a drawer. Okay, next slide. If you have any concerns that can't be resolved with your supervisor and your instructor, as Meadows already said, we're here for your support. So we're very much a link between students and the Faculty of Grad Studies. We can help you with applications or things that need to go to Faculty of Grad Studies that need approval by them. We're also the approvers of processes. If there's a form, to be signed, is likely that we sign it. So every form related to every exam, your annual progress reports, if you're asking for take a different course instead of a required course, or instead of a course in a different, all of that, we sign it all. So we're usually very familiar with all the processes. And a really important one is that we as faculty members will maintain your confidentiality and privacy. So if you are having an issue that's important to you, an issue with your supervisor or your course instructor, we aren't here to just say, well, your supervisor's always right. We're actually here to listen and try to help you. What kind of things could we do to help resolve this situation? What kind of processes could we engage through? What's going on here? And we really are, you can come to us confidentially and about any issues like that. And that's something I think students sometimes forget, that we're there for that, and that we're here to help and support you through your programs. Okay, next slide. I think that was my last slide. Yep. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Meadow.
Yeah, thanks, Marie-Claire. So I wanted to give you an overview of scholarships and awards, the types of awards that you can expect to be eligible for or think about in terms of your program. I like to talk about awards going from most external to most internal. Not only is it the way in which the awards roll out throughout the year, but it actually kind of is like the most maybe largest awards that come first, and maybe smaller awards that come later. Not all the time, but just in general. So come October, you're going to be thinking about external awards. These are the tri-agency awards. Most likely SSHRC is what you're going to be applying for. The deadline for that really comes up fast. It's October 1st, I believe, every year. There's also some Killam Trust Awards, some other external awards that will come across our desk throughout the year, but the tri-agency is really the big one. If you apply for a tri-agency award, you're automatically eligible for, oh no, hold on. Let me backtrack. Okay, second award competition that you apply for every year is the graduate award competition. There's a lot of different awards that go within this. The Killam is the big one that we would adjudicate. There's some entrance awards. If you're already in program, you've missed that that ability to apply, as well as some other awards like Ages Research and Alberta Innovates. So there's some really big awards that are kind of more either government sponsored or university sponsored. If you're Indigenous, we do have some separate awards for Indigenous folks, Ages being some of them, but there's lots of other awards that we have through the Faculty of Graduate Studies. And then we have what we call our Ages or Alberta Graduate Excellence Scholarships. There's two types of these awards. One of them is if you apply for tri-agency, then the Faculty of Graduate Studies, if you're ranked high on those, but you don't get a tri-agency award, they will consider you for one of their Ages Research Awards. And that means, though, that you do have to apply for a tri-agency award the following year. So that is the stipulation of getting an Ages through them. Program-wise, we have our own quota for Ages that we also distribute. We tend to, though, base those on folks who applied for the tri-agency or the graduate award competition. You don't actually have to apply separately for an Ages. Then after those have been rolled out, usually find out about tri-agency in around April, any kind of graduate award competition after that, plus your Ages research. Then later on around June, July, we're looking at internal Ages, and program recommended awards are ones that are specific to our program. They often have criteria that you'd have to meet. Sometimes there's like a social justice criteria, or you're studying gifted studies, or you're interested in early childhood education. There's a whole list of program recommended ones. Those ones then we kind of decide in like the summer, mid to end summer, because we kind of try to spread out these awards as much as possible to as many students as possible. So if you're getting a tri-agency award, we might try to give program recommended awards to students that don't have one of those. Not always, but that is the general trend. Next. So here's just the breakdown again in terms of how these kind of roll out. If you are thinking about doing a tri-agency award this fall, which I would highly recommend you do, I suggest that you even try to work with your supervisor before you start. Thinking June and July, you can put a notice of intent that you're going to apply for one of these with our Faculty of Graduate Studies. That means then that you'll be included in lots of workshops and opportunities that supports they provide to students. And then thinking really like comes real fast in October. So if you can kind of get a head start on it in the summertime, then you're a little bit ahead of the game. The graduate award competition deadline is not till December. The Indigenous ones happens, the deadline changes every year. It's sometimes often in the fall term, usually around November. Again, you don't have to apply for Ages. Our program recommended awards, that deadline is February 1st. And then we have other awards that are variable. We have some travel awards, for example. We have our Workland Doctoral Award. All of those have some different deadlines, but you can see our Workland Scholarship page for all those details. Next slide. Okay, so the university has what they call a maximum funding policy, which means that if you're a doctoral student and you get awards, the maximum amount of awards that you can hold are $26,000. This is probably going to change for this upcoming year because the Government of Canada has changed their award amounts for SSHRCs. But nevertheless, this is what they've kind of determined as kind of the maximum. This is also a way in which we can spread awards out to other students. You can hold one program recommended award over that limit. So if you had the tri-agency SSHRC, you were the only really good eligible applicant for a program recommended, we would consider you for that. And I would then provide permission for you to go over that amount. All right, next. So as you probably already know, our PhD funding is contingent on applying for all the awards and scholarships for which you're eligible. And just thinking about getting awards, like even if you think this award is really small, it actually, I always say to students, like the rich get richer. If you have little awards, it actually makes you even stronger for applying for larger awards and being more successful. So don't kind of poo-poo those kind of smaller awards, because students who get those tri-agency awards, they often have a lot of small awards under their belt already. So that's what I mean by the rich get richer, right? The more small awards you can get, the more successful you are later on. Next, please. So words of advice when you're thinking about applying for scholarships this year. You really want to check the terms of reference for the awards. Make sure that you're eligible. Make sure you understand what the contingencies are. For example, if you're going to accept a tri-agency, a research aid as research from the Faculty of Grad Studies, you have to really be aware that you are expected to apply for a SSHRC for the following year. If you don't, that ages is actually going to be clawed back. So you have to make sure you're following all the rules. Often you have to have references. Give your references lots of time. Don't expect your reference to be able to just peel off a reference in a day or two because all of a sudden, oh, I really want to apply for this. Follow the instructions for applying for the award. I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure you are dotting all your I's and crossing your T's. And of course, you want to meet the deadline. Deadlines are hard deadlines here. When you're going to come in grad school, you're going to realize sometimes deadlines aren't deadlines. I don't want to give you away too many secrets here, right? You can kind of get away with being a little bit late. Like tri-agency deadlines are deadlines. There is no exceptions, and no exceptions for GACs, no exceptions for other awards. So make sure that you're giving yourself lots of time and meeting those deadlines. Next slide. Okay, some last words of advice here. Again, think about working with your supervisor to submit those tri-council applications. It comes real fast. You're going to be surprised by how busy you're going to be hitting September. We send out notices regularly through the student listserv about awards, and also FGS sends out notices regularly in their grad advisor. Pay attention to these. Do not just delete because you get too many notices. It's really important that you don't miss these things. FGS has lots of resources and workshops. They've got some really good information on their sites. Check them out. Make sure that you're aware of them. Don't miss them and take advantage of them. All right. Make sure, again, checking your emails, notices and communications come out regularly. And then again, bolstering that research activity. Make sure that you're considering, even though you're really busy with lots of coursework, it's really important that you keep up other research activities, get those publications and presentations. Again, those things are going to make you more competitive for scholarships. If you don't have a publication at a PhD level and you're trying to apply for a SSHRC, you're probably not going to be successful. You really do need that stuff to make sure that you're going to be successful in those competitions. They're pretty competitive. I will say that I've been doing this now. This is my third year in terms of scholarships and awards, and I cannot believe how much more competitive these awards have gotten over those 3 years. Students have way more of this research activity than I ever did as a student, and like even 3 years ago. Okay, next slide. Okay, if you want more information about scholarships and awards, Faculty of Graduate Studies has their own website. They have this UGrad Calgary Awards site, and on that site, they actually have a database of awards. So we don't cover all the awards on our own site. You can go in here, and sometimes there's awards that you might be eligible for that we just don't track, like the Elizabeth Cannon Entrepreneurial Award or something like that. Some of our students have gotten that award, but we don't list it on our site. It's not applicable to most of our students, but it might be applicable to you. Next slide. All right, here's a sample of the Graduates Awards database. You can do a search here by program, by like doctoral programs, and you can take a look and peruse through, see what you could be eligible for other than the awards that we have on our site. Okay, next slide. And lastly, here's a sample of our sites. We have information and links to other places, like the Tri-Council Awards, for example, provides much more detailed information about some of these scholarships, as well as our program recommended scholarships and travel awards, things that are more internal as well. Okay, I think that might be it. Let's see what's next here. Aha. Okay. If you're going to apply for Tri-Council, obviously you will want to look at the information on their sites as well. So here's an example about the SSHRC and master's program. There's obviously a doctoral one as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, student information. So resources. Lots of resources for students at Workland is scattered around a little bit. Sometimes things only supervisors have access to. We've actually created, thanks to Marie-Claire and Angie here, and really we're going to be creating a D2L site for all students. It's not up and running yet, but just so you're aware, when we roll this out, there's going to be some good information for students in there about things like the forums and processes. Some EDSAs have program-specific D2L shells. Counseling and school psychology, for example, they have their own very program-specific, so things about practicum and internship, things that our students only know. We put out lots of notices that are specific to programs as well. Is there anything else on this slide? All right. Again, what do you do before program starts? Really connect with your supervisor. Thinking about that SSHRC application, make sure you're enrolled in your courses. All this kind of front end stuff will help make your transition smoother into the program. Okay, anything else? And that's it. All right. Wow, we may get some good time. There's time for questions. Feel free to maybe type in the chat box or even use your mic. We're always happy to see faces and hear voices. Any questions for us tonight?
Hey, thanks for all that information. I'm just curious about the $26,000 cap
It's
on
happened
awards.
here
If
with
I
my
could get-
volume, I think.
Oh,
Oh no, that's someone else's computer.
no,
You can still hear me, right?
yeah.
Did you hear the question, Meadow?
Something happened with my volume here. My computer's acting funny. Can maybe let me just see here. I don't know what's going on with my speakers. Hold on one second. Okay, can we try that again?
Yeah, no worries. I'm just curious about the $26,000 cap on awards.